My sister accused me of stealing her necklace just to label me a liar. My parents sided with her and kicked me out, completely unaware that I was the one paying her tuition and covering the household bills. So, I stopped everything and walked away. What happened next? My sister accused me of stealing her necklace, called me a liar, and then my parents kicked me out. What they didn't know was that I was secretly paying for her college tuition and most of their household bills. So, I stopped the payments and left. What happened next? I'm Rebecca Martinez, and until last month, I genuinely believed family meant unwavering support, no matter what. Then, my sister Olivia claimed I'd stolen her $8,000 necklace, and my parents immediately sided with her. My dad's words still echo in my mind. Get out of my house if you're going to lie to our faces. They had no idea I was the one quietly covering their mortgage, utilities, and yes, Olivia's entire college education. Growing up as the oldest daughter in the Martinez family, there were always expectations. My parents, Miguel and Anna Martinez, constantly stressed the importance of family loyalty. Family is forever, my dad would declare during Sunday dinners. When everything else crumbles, blood remains. Those words became my guiding principle throughout my childhood and early adult life, influencing every decision I made. Our family of four lived in a modest suburban home in Connecticut, a place my parents bought during more prosperous times. Dad's construction company had once been booming, employing 15 people at its peak. Mom worked as an administrative assistant at the local high school, providing a consistent but modest income. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable enough that I never worried about basic necessities. Everything shifted dramatically with the 2008 recession. Dad's business suffered a devastating blow when several major clients went bankrupt, leaving him owed hundreds of thousands of dollars. Within 18 months, he had to let go of all his employees and eventually filed for bankruptcy. The weight of failure was immense for him. Although he later found work as a foreman for another company, his income was more than halved. As if the financial ruin wasn't enough, Mom was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis that same year. Medical bills quickly accumulated, even with insurance, and their savings rapidly disappeared. They refinanced the house twice just to stay afloat. By the time I graduated college in 2018, they were barely scraping by, though they tried desperately to hide it from Olivia and me. Olivia is 7 years younger than me. While I witnessed our family's financial struggles and understood the severity of our situation, she remained largely shielded from these harsh realities. My parents, especially Dad, were determined that at least one of their daughters would experience a normal childhood. This meant that while I used secondhand textbooks and worked part-time jobs throughout high school and college, Olivia continued to receive new clothes, the latest phone models, and even a car for her 16th birthday. I never resented her for this. It wasn't her fault our parents chose to protect her from financial hardship. However, it did create a fundamental difference in our perspectives on money and responsibility. I became frugal and self-reliant, while Olivia developed an expectation that her needs and desires would always be met with little effort on her part. After earning my degree in computer science, I was fortunate to secure a position at a rapidly expanding tech company. My starting salary was good, and I quickly proved my worth, earning 3 promotions in as many years. By age 25, I was making 6 figures as a senior developer, with stock options significantly increasing my net worth. I bought a small, modern apartment just 20 minutes from my parents' house and established my financial independence. It was during a casual visit home 3 years ago that I truly understood how dire my parents' financial situation had become. While Mom and Olivia were out shopping, Dad received a call he took in the garage. Curious about his hushed tone, I quietly followed and overheard him pleading with a mortgage company for an extension on a late payment. After he hung up, I found him sitting in his old pickup truck, head in his hands, silently crying. That moment changed everything. When I confronted him, his pride initially made him defensive, but eventually, the truth emerged. They were 3 months behind on their mortgage. Mom's medical bills had created substantial debt, and they had been relying on credit cards for basic expenses for months. The final blow was Olivia's acceptance to an expensive private university with a $45,000 annual tuition. They had promised her they would cover it, unwilling to disappoint her or admit their financial struggles. That night, I made a decision that would forever alter our family dynamics, though none of us realized it at the time. I offered to temporarily help with some bills until they got back on their feet. Dad reluctantly agreed, but with one condition: Olivia must never know. It would crush her to learn we're struggling, he insisted, and your mother would be humiliated if the neighbors found out we needed help from our daughter. What started as helping with a few bills quickly expanded. Within 6 months, I was paying their entire mortgage, all utilities, property taxes, and most of Mom's medical expenses. When Olivia started college, I took on her full tuition payments as well. In total, I was contributing over $70,000 annually to keep my family afloat, nearly 2/3 of my take-home pay. Despite living 20 minutes away in my own apartment, I visited at least twice a week, bringing groceries I claimed were on sale or extras from work events. I helped Dad with house repairs on weekends, drove Mom to medical appointments, and even assisted Olivia with her programming homework when she struggled in her introductory computer science course. Last Christmas, I watched as my parents gave Olivia the latest MacBook Pro, supposedly from them. In reality, I had purchased it as I did most significant gift from them over the past few years. Olivia hugged our parents tightly, gushing about how much she loved them, while I received a sweater and a gift card. I told myself I didn't mind. Seeing my family happy was enough. For Olivia's 20th birthday 2 months ago, my parents wanted to give her something truly special. She had been hinting about an $8,000 white gold and diamond necklace she'd seen at a downtown boutique. It's an investment piece, she had explained over dinner, something I'll keep forever and maybe even pass down someday. Mom looked distressed at the price tag, but Dad promised they'd figure something out. That something was me, of course. When Dad called, asking if I could loan them the money, I already knew it wasn't a loan. None of the money I'd given them had ever been repaid, nor did I expect it to be. I transferred the funds that day, and a week later, I watched Olivia unwrap the blue velvet box at her birthday dinner, squealing with delight as Dad fastened the necklace around her neck. "You're the best parents ever," she declared, admiring her reflection. I don't know anyone else whose parents would get them something this amazing. I smiled and took photos of the moment, ignoring the familiar ache in my chest. Part of me hoped that one day they would acknowledge all I had done, that my sacrifices would eventually be recognized and appreciated. That faith in my family's ultimate recognition kept me going, even as the balance in my savings account dwindled while Olivia's social media filled with photos of spring break trips and shopping sprees, indirectly funded by me. I never imagined that necklace would become the catalyst for destroying the family I had sacrificed so much to preserve. Sunday dinners at my parents' house were a sacred tradition. No matter how busy our weeks became, we all made an effort to be there at 6 sharp. Mom would spend the afternoon cooking something special. Dad would open a bottle of wine. And for a few hours, we could pretend we were still the happy, financially stable family we had once been. That particular Sunday began like any other. I arrived early to help Mom prepare her specialty chicken enchiladas with homemade salsa verde. Dad and Olivia were watching a basketball game in the living room, occasionally cheering or groaning, depending on the score. Everything felt normal until halfway through dinner when Olivia suddenly put down her fork. "Has anyone seen my necklace?" she asked, her hand instinctively touching her bare throat. "The diamond one for my birthday. I was going to wear it tonight, but couldn't find it in my jewelry box. Did you check your dresser?" Mom suggested. "Sometimes you leave things there when you're in a hurry." Olivia shook her head. "I always keep it in the blue velvet box. It's too valuable to leave out." "When was the last time you wore it?" I asked, genuinely concerned. I knew how much that necklace meant to her, regardless of who had actually paid for it. "Last weekend at Melissa's party," she replied. "I definitely put it back in its box when I came home." Dad's brow furrowed. "Are you sure? You were pretty tipsy when you got back from that party." "I wasn't that drunk," Olivia protested, "and I specifically remember putting it away because I was worried about losing it." Dinner was temporarily abandoned as we all helped search for the missing necklace. I followed Olivia to her bedroom, helping her check every drawer and surface. We looked under the bed, in clothing pockets, and even in the bathroom, where she might have taken it off while getting ready. The more we searched without finding it, the more agitated Olivia became. "I don't understand," she muttered, growing increasingly frustrated. "It should be here." As the search expanded to the rest of the house, I noticed a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Olivia's eyes followed me when I entered rooms. When I offered to check the laundry room, she quickly said she'd already looked there, though I knew she hadn't. Small moments of tension began building, like static electricity before a storm. We returned to the dining table after an hour of fruitless searching. The enchiladas had gone cold, but we reheated plates in the microwave and tried to salvage dinner. The conversation was strained, with Olivia unusually quiet. "You were in my room earlier today, weren't you, Rebecca?" she suddenly asked, her voice carrying an edge I hadn't heard before. I paused mid-bite, confused. "What? No. I came straight to the kitchen when I arrived. I thought I saw you coming out when I was heading upstairs. I went up to use the bathroom once, but I didn't go in your room," I explained, increasingly uncomfortable with her tone. Mom shifted in her seat. Dad glanced between us, his expression unreadable. "That's strange," Olivia continued, "because my door was open when I got back upstairs, and I always close it. Maybe Mom went in to put away laundry," I suggested. Mom shook her head. "No, I didn't do laundry today." The implication hung in the air like a bad smell. No one was outright accusing me of anything, but the suggestion was clear enough. "Olivia," I said carefully, "if you're implying what I think you are, you're wrong. I had absolutely no reason to go into your room. I definitely didn't take your necklace." She shrugged, but her eyes remained suspicious. "I'm just trying to figure out what happened. It's an $8,000 necklace. It doesn't just disappear." "Well, it didn't disappear into my pocket," I said, trying to keep my voice level despite my growing indignation. Dad cleared his throat. "Rebecca, no one's accusing you of anything," he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "But you have to admit, it's a bit of a coincidence that the necklace goes missing on a day you visit." "I visit twice a week, every week," I replied, stunned that he would even entertain the idea. "Are you seriously suggesting I would steal from my own sister?" "Of course not," Mom interjected weakly, though she didn't meet my eyes. "We're all just concerned." The remainder of dinner passed in uncomfortable silence. I offered again to help search, but Olivia declined, saying perhaps it would turn up on its own. The implication was clear. Once I left, maybe the necklace would mysteriously reappear. I drove home that night with a knot in my stomach. For the first time, I felt like an outsider in my own family. The people I had sacrificed so much for had just casually considered me capable of theft. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. "Just so you know, I've looked everywhere. It's definitely not in the house." I stared at the message, unsure how to respond. Before I could decide, another text came through. "If you took it as some kind of joke, it's not funny anymore. Just give it back and we can forget about it." I typed and deleted several responses before finally sending. "I didn't take your necklace, Olivia. I would never do that to you. I hope you find it soon." Her reply was almost instantaneous. "Whatever. Just know Mom and Dad are really upset." Sleep eluded me that night as more messages arrived, each more accusatory than the last. By morning, it seemed my sister had fully convinced herself I was a thief, and based on her texts, my parents weren't far behind in that belief. What had started as a simple missing item had somehow morphed into a referendum on my character, and apparently, I was failing. The next morning, I woke to several missed calls from both my parents. Rather than returning them immediately, I decided to drive over and address the situation in person. If there was a misunderstanding, surely we could clear it up face to face. I still believe in our family's ability to communicate rationally, despite the uneasiness from the previous night. When I arrived at my parents' house around 10 o'clock, the atmosphere was noticeably tense. Mom was washing dishes with unusual vigor, barely acknowledging my greeting. Dad sat at the kitchen table, his face grim and newspaper untouched beside his coffee. "Where's Olivia?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Upstairs," Dad replied curtly. "She's been turning her room upside down all morning looking for that necklace." I took a deep breath. "Look, I understand everyone's upset, but I need to make it absolutely clear that I had nothing to do with its disappearance. Before Dad could respond, Olivia appeared in the doorway, her expression a mixture of anger and what looked almost like triumph. "Then how do you explain this?" she demanded, holding up her empty blue velvet jewelry box. "I found it in your old bedroom, shoved under the bookshelf." I stared at her, genuinely confused. "That's impossible. I haven't been in that room in weeks." "Well, the box didn't walk there on its own," Dad said, standing up. His voice had taken on an aggressive edge I rarely heard directed at me. "Rebecca, if you're in some kind of financial trouble, you should have come to us instead of doing something like this." The irony of his statement was so profound, I almost laughed. Me, in financial trouble, when I was the one keeping their entire household afloat. "Dad, this is ridiculous. I don't need money, and I certainly wouldn't steal from my own sister." "Then how did the box get in your room?" he demanded. "It's not my room anymore. I haven't lived here in years. Anyone could have put it there, including Olivia," I added, the implication clear. Olivia gasped dramatically. "Are you saying I planted it? Why would I do that?" Mom finally turned from the sink. "Please, let's not fight. I'm sure there's an explanation." "Yes, there is," Dad said, his voice rising. "The explanation is that someone took that necklace, and the evidence points to Rebecca." I felt my face flush with anger and hurt. "What evidence? An empty box that could have been placed by anyone? That's not evidence. That's a setup. Why would anyone want to set you up?" Dad challenged. "I don't know. Why would I want to steal a necklace when I make more than enough money to buy my own if I wanted one?" Throughout this heated exchange, I noticed something odd about Olivia's behavior. While she appeared distressed when my parents were looking at her, I caught a different expression when their attention was elsewhere. A slight curl of satisfaction at the corner of her mouth, quickly masked when she realized I was watching. "Let's check the security camera," I suggested. My parents had installed a basic security system last year with a camera covering the front door and driveway. It would show if anyone left the house with something. Dad nodded stiffly, and we gathered around his laptop as he pulled up the footage from the previous day. We watched my arrival at 4 o'clock, empty-handed except for a bag of groceries. Various angles showed nothing suspicious throughout the evening, and when I left around 9 o'clock, I carried out only my purse and phone. The footage wasn't particularly high quality, but it was clear enough to see I hadn't taken a distinctive jewelry box. "She could have put it in her purse," Olivia insisted. "My purse isn't big enough to fit that box without being obviously misshapen," I countered. "Maybe you took just the necklace then?" she pressed. "It would fit in a pocket." Dad rubbed his temples. "Rebecca, if you needed money, you could have sold it. $8,000 would solve a lot of problems." The conversation was becoming increasingly absurd. While they continued speculating about my potential financial motives, my phone buzzed with a payment reminder. Ironically, it was for their mortgage due in 3 days. Out of habit, I authorized the payment right there. $3,000 transferred from my account to cover their housing for another month. No one noticed as I performed this act of family support, even while being accused of theft. "I'm financially stable," I said, putting my phone away. "Everyone has problems," Mom said softly. "Even successful people get into trouble sometimes." I stared at her, hurt that she too seemed to believe I was capable of this. "Mom, I haven't taken anything." "I wouldn't." "Then why was the box in your room?" Dad demanded again, as if repetition would somehow change the facts. "I told you, I don't know, but there are plenty of explanations that don't involve me being a thief." As the accusations continued, I noticed Olivia typing on her phone, a slight smirk visible for just a moment. A terrible thought began forming in my mind. Was it possible she had deliberately engineered this situation? But why would she want to drive a wedge between me and our parents? "Look," I said finally, my patience wearing thin. "I understand the necklace is valuable and you're upset it's missing, but I've spent my entire life being honest and reliable. I've always been there for this family. Does it really make sense that I would suddenly decide to steal from you?" Dad's expression hardened. People change, and sometimes we don't know someone as well as we think we do. Those words cut deeper than he could possibly know. After everything I had sacrificed, after all the support I had provided without recognition or thanks, My character was being questioned based on nothing but circumstantial evidence and my sister's accusations. "I think you should leave until we figure this out," Dad said finally. "Your mother is upset, and your presence is just making everything worse." I looked to Mom for support, but she averted her eyes, silently accepting Dad's decision. Olivia stood in the background, and for a split second, I caught that expression again. Not sadness or confusion, but satisfaction, relief. As I gathered my things to leave, I felt a profound sense of injustice washing over me. This wasn't just about a missing necklace anymore. It was about trust, respect, and the painful realization that despite everything I had done, my family would choose to believe the worst of me based on flimsy evidence. Walking to my car, I noticed Olivia watching from her bedroom window. Our eyes met briefly, and in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty this was no misunderstanding. Something more calculated was at play, though I couldn't yet grasp why my own sister would want to destroy my relationship with our parents. 3 days passed with minimal communication from my family. Mom sent a few non-committal texts asking how I was doing, carefully avoiding any mention of the necklace. Dad remained silent. Olivia, meanwhile, had apparently been busy sharing her version of events with extended family members. This became painfully clear when I received a call from my Aunt Patricia, Dad's sister, asking if I would come to the house for a family discussion that evening. Her tone was gentle but firm, suggesting attendance wasn't optional if I wanted to remain part of the family. "Everyone wants to resolve this situation," she explained. "Your parents are very upset." "I'm upset too," I replied. "I've been accused of something I didn't do, and no one believes me." "That's why we need to talk," she insisted. "Please be there, Rebecca." I agreed, not because I expected a fair hearing, but because I couldn't bear the thought of being estranged from my family. Despite everything, I still loved them and desperately wanted to clear my name. When I arrived that evening, the scene that greeted me felt more like an intervention than a family discussion. Dad and Mom sat on the living room couch. Aunt Patricia and Uncle Robert occupied the armchairs. Olivia perched on the piano bench, eyes red as if she'd been crying. My cousin Michael, who had never particularly liked me, stood by the fireplace with his arms crossed. "Rebecca," Dad began as soon as I sat down, "we've asked you here because this situation has gone on long enough. The necklace is still missing, and all evidence points to you taking it." "What evidence?" I demanded. "An empty box that anyone could have planted?" Olivia spoke up, her voice trembling theatrically. "I've been doing some research, and the pawn shop downtown doesn't require ID for items under $10,000. They pay cash on the spot." The implication was clear, and I felt my face flush with anger. "So now I've not only stolen your necklace, but pawned it? This is absurd. Is it?" Dad challenged. "You've been acting strange lately, distracted, checking your phone all the time, making excuses to leave early." I almost laughed at the bitter irony. The phone checking was to manage their bills. The early departures were to make it to my second job, which I'd taken on 6 months ago to help cover Olivia's study abroad program for the upcoming semester. "That doesn't prove anything," I said. Aunt Patricia leaned forward. "Rebecca, honey, if you're in trouble, we want to help, but first, you need to be honest." "I'm being honest. I didn't take the necklace." Uncle Robert shook his head sadly. "Denial only makes this harder for everyone." The conversation continued in this vein, with various family members taking turns explaining why confession would be best for everyone. No one entertained the possibility of my innocence, not even for a moment. It was as if they had already decided my guilt and were simply waiting for me to acknowledge it. Dad finally delivered his ultimatum, rising to his full height and pointing at me with a shaking finger. "Rebecca, I'm going to say this once. Either confess what you did with the necklace and return it, or get out of this house and don't come back until you're ready to tell the truth." I stared at him, speechless. In all my 28 years, I had never heard him speak to me with such coldness. "Dad," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "I'm your daughter. You've known me my whole life. Do you really believe I would do this?" "The Rebecca I raised wouldn't," he answered, "but people change." I turned to my mother, who had remained largely silent. "Mom, do you believe I did this?" She looked down at her hands, twisted together in her lap. Her silence was answer enough. The betrayal cut so deep I could barely breathe. I had financially supported this family for years, sacrificed my own financial security, put my life on hold in countless ways, and this was what I received in return. Not just disbelief, but outright condemnation. "I think we should check Rebecca's car," Michael suggested suddenly. "If she hasn't pawned it yet, she might still have it there." Before I could protest, Dad was nodding. "Good idea. Rebecca, give us your keys." "This is ridiculous," I said, but found myself handing over my keys anyway, unwilling to appear uncooperative and further cement their suspicions. We all trooped outside to where my car was parked in the driveway. Dad unlocked it and began searching while the family watched. He checked under the seats, in the glove compartment, and finally moved to the trunk. When he opened it, I heard several gasps. There, partially visible under a reusable grocery bag, was the distinctive blue velvet jewelry box. I stared in shock. "That's not. I didn't put that there." Dad picked up the box and opened it. Empty, of course. He turned to me, his expression a mixture of confirmation and disappointment. "Still going to deny it? Someone planted that." I insisted, my voice rising with desperation. "I haven't even opened my trunk in days." "Convenient excuse," Michael muttered. Dad closed the trunk with a slam that seemed to echo my family's final judgment. "I think we've seen enough, Rebecca. I want you to leave now. Don't contact us until you're ready to admit what you did and make it right." "Dad, please," I begged, tears now flowing freely. "Someone is setting me up. This isn't fair." "What isn't fair," he said coldly, "is stealing from your own sister and lying to our faces. I raised you better than this." I looked around at the faces of my family members. Some showed anger, others disappointment or sad resignation. Only Olivia's expression seemed odd. Behind the performative tears, there was something else: satisfaction, relief. I couldn't quite place it. "Mom, I tried one last time. Please say something." She finally looked up, her eyes wet but her resolve firm. "Just go, Rebecca. Give us some time." Defeated and devastated, I gathered my purse and keys. As I was about to leave, Olivia pulled out her phone to check a notification, and that's when I saw it. In the reflection of her dark phone screen, just for an instant before she tilted it away, the unmistakable glint of her diamond necklace, partially visible beneath the collar of her sweater. The realization hit me like a physical blow. She had the necklace all along. This entire drama, the accusations, the family meeting, all of it was a deliberate setup. My own sister had orchestrated my exile from the family. I opened my mouth to expose her, but in that moment, I realized it would be pointless. They had already decided I was guilty. My word against hers would change nothing, especially without proof. I walked to my car in silence, feeling their eyes on my back. As I drove away from the house I had financially supported for years, tears blurred my vision so badly I had to pull over a block away. Alone in my car, I finally allowed myself to break down completely, sobbing until my throat was raw and my eyes burned. The betrayal was absolute. Not just the false accusation, but the knowledge that my sister had deliberately engineered my downfall. And worse, that my parents, who I had sacrificed so much to support, had chosen to believe the worst of me without a moment's hesitation. When I finally made it back to my apartment, I sat in darkness for hours, replaying every moment of the past few days, trying to understand how my relationship with my family could disintegrate so completely. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. "Hope you're happy now. You've upset everyone." The sheer audacity of her message, after what she had done, crystallized something within me. This wasn't just about a necklace. It was about years of imbalance, of unacknowledged sacrifice, of enabling destructive family dynamics. Something had to change, and it was clear now that I would have to be the one to change it. I woke the next morning feeling oddly calm. The emotional storm of the previous night had passed, leaving behind a clarity I hadn't experienced in years. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and began a systematic review of my financial situation. For the first time, I created a comprehensive spreadsheet detailing every dollar I had contributed to my family over the past 3 years. Mortgage payments, $108,000. Utilities, approximately $12,600. Property taxes, $22,500. Mom's medical bills, $47,800. Olivia's tuition and expenses, $151,200. Miscellaneous support, including groceries, car repairs, and gifts, roughly $35,000. The grand total made me physically ill. $377,100 over 3 years. More than $350,000. Enough for a substantial down payment on a house. Enough to have fully funded my retirement accounts. Enough to have changed the trajectory of my own financial future. The spreadsheet also revealed uncomfortable truths about my current situation. My savings had dwindled to less than 2 months of living expenses. I had been making minimum payments on my own credit card to free up cash for my family's needs. My 401k contributions had been reduced to capture just the company match, far less than financial advisors recommended for someone my age. In short, I had been sacrificing my own financial health and future security for a family that had just accused me of theft and thrown me out of their lives. Around noon, I called Janet Perez, a financial advisor I had consulted briefly when I first started earning substantial money. She agreed to see me that afternoon, and I brought my spreadsheet and supporting documentation to her office. "Rebecca," she said after reviewing the numbers, her expression a mixture of concern and disbelief, "this level of financial support is unsustainable. It's admirable that you wanted to help your family, but you've put your own financial security at serious risk. I know that now," I admitted, "but I need to understand my options going forward. Am I legally obligated to continue any of these payments?" She shook her head firmly. "Absolutely not. Unless you've signed contracts specifically committing to these payments, which I'm guessing you haven't, you have no legal obligation to continue financial support. These were gifts, not legally binding commitments. Even the tuition payments, there's no way they could force me to continue those. The university has a contract with the student or whoever signed the tuition agreement, not with you as a third-party payer. If you've been making payments directly to the school without signing any documents, you can stop at any time." I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. "What about the mortgage? My name isn't on it, but I've been making the payments for years." "Same principle applies. The mortgage agreement is between your parents and the bank. Your voluntary payments don't create a legal obligation to continue." To be absolutely certain, I also scheduled a consultation with a lawyer later that afternoon. Attorney William Chun confirmed everything Janet had told me. I had no legal obligation to continue financial support to my family. Any moral obligation, he pointed out gently, had to be weighed against their treatment of me and my own needs. Family financial support is a choice, not a requirement, he explained, especially when there's been a significant breach of trust. Armed with this information, I returned home and began gathering evidence of my financial support. Bank statements showing transfers to my parents' accounts, records of direct payments to Olivia's university, utility bills in my parents' names with payment confirmations from my accounts. I organized everything chronologically in a binder, creating an irrefutable record of my contributions. As I worked, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered anyway, half expecting a collection agency looking for my parents.